Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's The Business Program. I'm Jazz Tangcay, Senior Artisans Editor at Variety. And before we are joined by our guests today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. So this conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $7 million in COVID relief to more than 7,500 performers. If you're a SAG-AFTRA artist and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video, and thank you for your support. Now, I am so excited to be here today to introduce casting directors. From Ted Lasso, we have Theo Park. From Cruella, Belfast, Step on the Nile, we have Lucy Bevan. And from The Queen's Gambit, we have Ellen Lewis. Hello and welcome to you all. And thank you to our audience, of course, for tuning in today. Feel free to drop your questions into the chat because we are definitely going to try and get to some of them. But thank you, Ellen, thank you, Theo, and thank you, Lucy. As I'm sure everybody wants to know, I mean, you've got some incredible stories, so let's hear from them. I mean, let's just start, based on let's talk about your creative briefs in casting your respective films and TV shows. Like, what was the key point for you? And Lucy, I'm going to start with you with Cruella. What was the key conversation that you had when it came to casting the origin story of Cruella de Vil?
I think the key thing for the director, Craig, was that he really liked actors who could improvise. And so that was something that he brought up really early on. And once Emma was in place and everyone around her, he just wanted the best people at being able to deliver comedy and to be able to improvise. And so there were a lot of people cast in that movie who had small parts, whose parts then developed because they were really good.
Yeah. Ellen, for you, what about for The Queen's Gambit? Anya Taylor-Joy, such an incredible cast of characters there, but talk about your creative brief. What was essential in that?
Definitely casting Beth Harmon was our first casting that we were going to be doing on the movie, on the TV show and the series. And so there are fantastic actresses actually in that age group. And so I started to talk to Scott Frank, the writer-director, about actresses. And Anya was definitely at the top of that list, but as I say, there are fantastic actresses. So it was educating Scott. That's, a lot of what our job is, hopefully, to have a collaboration with the director and or writer. And luckily, Scott responded to Annie. I had him watch Thoroughbreds, which Corey Finley had directed, and it's a wonderful small film. And he fell in love with Anya and then met her, and he just knew that was it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, at what point did she come into the casting process?
Early. It was very early. I mean, obviously we knew we had to have Beth. That was the first and foremost. And I had met Anya when she did The Witches, I think was The Witch, which had been done in England, which I actually hadn't watched because it's a horror film and I don't watch horror films. But I met her when she came through New York very early, and I thought she was fantastic. And a movie that actually Lucy worked with me on, Ready Player One. I had her tape for Ready Player One. She didn't get that job. Actually, her co-star in Thoroughbreds did. But, I was fascinated by her from the minute that I met her. So.
Everybody's going to go out and watch Thoroughbreds now. If you haven't seen it, incredible.
That's great.
Movie, right? Theo, talk about casting Ted Lasso. And, it is far more than a show about football, soccer, depending on where you are in the world today. But Yeah, talk about that creative brief there.
Well, much like Ellen's story, actually, we obviously had to start with our female lead. So they got me on early in season 1 to cast Rebecca. And interestingly enough, the opposite of Ellen's story, Hannah Waddingham came in really late in the process. We explored many actresses, lots of names, a few people passed. I don't think I should really say who passed, but and in fact, Jason and Brendan flew over from LA to London to do a day with me and meet some actresses, and they were all fantastic, but no one was quite hitting it. And then we saw more people when they went back to LA. I was taping people, and then Hannah came in, and then that was it really. But it was late in the process.
Wow. Here's a question that came in from the audience, and it's, I've had people tell me that I'm talented and skilled, and somehow people like you just need to see my work. So when you're casting a show or a movie, how do they get on your radar? Theo, do you want to start?
Well, with me, it's whoever makes me laugh. I'm really into comedy generally, and comedy actors. So anyone with a funny bone, I will remember.
Yeah. Lucy, how does somebody get on your radar?
Difficult question, isn't it? Because obviously there are so many different ways to find actors in the theatre. We go to the theatre a lot here. And so I cast a lot of people out of the theatre. And then obviously we have good relationships with agents who represent people. So obviously having an agent is the most important thing in terms of putting you forward. But also there are ways of creating your own work, aren't there now? Like, I think that's got, I think there are, I don't know, Ellen, what do you think? I'm not sure if I'm answering that well.
It's challenging. It's challenging being an actor. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. We're speaking to actors. It's a difficult career choice because you are subject to, how do you get through? But I would say that exactly what, I like a sense of humor as well, and theater too. And I think that, breakdown services here. And Actors Access. So there are two ways. Actors Access, actors can get on, and they don't have to have representation. I'm not sure if there's a fee somebody has to pay. I would hope not. But I think that we all try to be as open as we can when we're starting a project, and open our minds to what the specific project that we're working on. And I think that's an important thing that an actor needs to realize, is that we are working on a specific piece. So everybody is not going to be right for,
Yeah. Cindy Tolan was saying something really interesting when she won the BAFTA here in London on Sunday. And she dedicated the BAFTA to Lim Starmaster, who cast the first West Side Story and wasn't credited. And she said there were 50 actors in the film for whom it was their first job. And that was so exciting to think. That was an incredibly specific brief she had. And it's a beautiful cast. And it kind of, gives hope, doesn't it? That, 50 of those actors, it's their first go.
Yeah.
So as Ellen says, we're always looking for, and I'm sure Theo you'd agree too, we're always looking for new people.
Oh yeah. I've been it's grad season, so I'm going to all the shows and the showcases. It's what it's all about, new talent.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about specific projects that you're all working on, and Theo, I'm curious, is something like, Ted Lasso, which is now, we're going into season 3, right? Like, what's the, when you're bringing in a new character into the mix, like, what are you looking for? Like, because obviously now we've got these established characters and actors, like we've got Rebecca, we've got Hannah, we've got Jason, Nick. What are you looking for in something like that? Like, what is the trick or secret to expanding this this group of characters that we've loved like from season one right away?
Sometimes you just don't know, because it's funny because we've got so many comedians on the show, but Jason is slightly allergic to comedy in a way. He likes people who play it really, really, straight, and because the comedy's on the page. So it really does depend on the role, whether they want, someone with a proper comedy background to do it, or whether they don't need to, and who hits the mark with their audition. Really, it really does vary actually on this show.
Yeah. And Lucy and Ellen, I mean, very often, you're always like the first point of conversation or contact with a director in terms of what they're looking for. Lucy, talk about working with Sir Kenneth Branagh, and are you finding like actors in awe of him? And again, this is a question from an audience, like how do you get past that sense of wonder so they focus on the work? And what is his casting process? Because he's very meticulous. And
this is the casting process on Belfast. It's the pandemic, it's June, so bear in mind we all shut down in March, so it was only a few months in, and he emailed me and he said, I've got a script, would you read it? Because he knew I was homeschooling my 4 children at home and everything was closed down. And I went, sure, I'll read it overnight. And then he said, do you think, so I read it overnight and he said, do you think we can do it in 6 weeks? Do you think we can start filming in 6 weeks? And I went, your lead is a kid. Okay. And we did. We started filming 6 weeks later.
No way. I didn't know that, Lucy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in terms of being meticulous, I mean, we luckily, because we've worked together so much, and Ellen, you both have, Ellen and Theo, worked with directors where you really know their process well. So we had to hit the ground running. I started that search for the kid the next day. And we did it in 6 weeks. So there's a real trust and understanding between us. And I just suggested people I thought would be good. We didn't have time.
It's a huge accomplishment, Lucy. It's amazing.
Yeah. How did you find Jude Hill? Tell us the story. We want to know.
I wasn't allowed to say it was Ken. It was I work with Carla Strong, who's brilliant, in Belfast, who's done all of Game of Thrones there in Belfast, and she's really great. And just using her name and my name, we said we were looking for a kid. So that's how we got submissions. And Jude didn't even know what he was auditioning for when we first met him, like the first few times. When I first met him on Zoom, obviously it was all on Zoom. And then I explained to him and to his mother that it was to be in a film that Ken was directing, and it was to play Ken as a child. And they were suitably, appropriately excited. And that's how it went. And then eventually Ken flew over to Belfast to meet him once we'd gone through the auditioning process. But he was clearly really special to me. Yeah.
Ellen, talk about working with Marty Scorsese and his casting process, and does he get involved in the audition process, and do his actors get to see scripts beforehand? Like, take us in to Marty's world.
Do the actors who are auditioning for just regular parts get to see a script?
Yeah.
Generally not, probably. And I just feel so blessed and lucky to have this long relationship, as Lucy's saying. We're very in sync. We have, we share an aesthetic, which is just so lucky. And, I've gotten to enter so many different worlds with Marty. And I think, from the first film that I worked on, New York Stories, I was still really working for Julia Taylor at the time. And I was an associate on the Woody Allen movie. I met Marty and I did life lessons for him. And then they called a year later and I did Goodfellas. And then a year and a half later, I did The Age of Innocence. So, what's fantastic is to have a director who believes in you enough, or whatever that is, that Marty didn't say, well, you did Goodfellas, and that was a very specific world. So I'm sure you can't do The Age of Innocence. But, as I say, I've gone all over the world for him, to India, on Kundun and Japan on Silence and Las Vegas on Casino. And every film has been a journey and an amazing learning experience. The most recent film, The Killers of the Flower Moon, where we were in Oklahoma and then casting on Zoom all throughout Texas and other, and Oklahoma. We cast over half the film, the rest of the film on Zoom, and worked with Renee Haynes, who's a phenomenal casting director who really knows the Native community. And so it's just every job has really been incredibly fulfilling and fun. It really, I feel very lucky.
Talk about casting during the pandemic, because as what most of us, like, we thought we'd be in here for 2 weeks, and 2.5 years later, we're kind of back in and we're not fully in. Like, where are you all in the casting stage? And are you back in person, or are you still doing it on Zoom? And what were the advantages to casting over Zoom for you?
I'm happy to answer that. I actually found there was a kind of time efficiency, particularly given that I only had 6 weeks to cast Belfast, that Zoom actually really worked with. So I'm not averse to the first round of auditioning on Zoom. It means actors don't have to schlep across town to meet for something that they might not be right for. But obviously there is nothing like having an actor in the room with a director and working on the material. So that's the ideal. But I've been sort of quite glad to embrace the technology of doing those first rounds on Zoom, particularly in the case of Belfast. So I don't see it as an all negative. I see it as like we've learned a lot and some of it's been helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theo, what about for you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The access and saving people's time. But there's something that's missing a little bit about being in the room with actors. Sometimes there's that, when they just walk in the door and the body language and just the vibe and the feeling, you just know. And you don't get that on Zoom, unfortunately. But Lucy's absolutely right. There's definitely lots of positives about it.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the fact that I could cast people, as I say, all throughout the South, and I don't know if I would have been going in a van around all over the state of Texas. I doubt it. But, I think that the thing that is still really great about Zoom is that we rather than having people self-tape, which we do that as well, I know we all do that, but on Zoom you still can meet an actor just like how we're talking right now and seeing each other. So you still can greet an actor and talk to an actor and work with them, even though it's not in person. So, but I don't think it would have been that much different had the, particularly on Killers of the Flower Moon, it would have still been challenging to have done this without just having people tape themselves all over. So the fact that we knew what Zoom was actually opened a more personable door to the auditioning.
Yeah. And there are a lot of, you talk about casting the net wide because of Zoom giving you that ability to do so. But there's a lot of, UK, US casting questions, and some UK shows say they actually don't want SAG actors. Is that a British equity SAG issue, or what is that reasoning behind that? Are you able to shed any light on that at all?
I think we can have SAG actors if they're willing to have an equity contract. But it's SAG contracts that cost more money.
That's right.
But a lot more.
Yeah. So
I just also wanted to say that on Queen's Gambit, where they were originally going to be shooting here and then maybe in Canada, and then they decided to shoot in Berlin. So I called Lucy, who introduced me to Olivia Scott Webb, who, you know, was Kate Sprance and my co-casting person. And then, you know, we had a wonderful Annalena Slater in Berlin who helped us as well. But when they decided to shoot in Berlin, it became obvious that we needed to not bring that many SAG actors over because the rules are different.
Yeah. And, you know, talk about advice you would give to actors when auditioning for smaller parts. Like, you know, we're not talking lead roles. Like, you know, what advice would you give?
Don't overdo it.
Simple advice.
Don't overdo it.
Ellen, Lucy?
I think it's really hard to audition for a small role because if you've got a big bunch of, you know, if you've got a whole page of dialogue, then it's easier. I think auditioning for a small role is super hard. I agree with Theo, don't overdo it. Don't bring your traffic stories in. Just work with what there is and keep it simple and do your best. That's all you can do. But it is hard. It's definitely hard auditioning for a small role.
And the small roles, I have to say, are many times my favorite roles to cast, even though it is difficult. You know, I definitely am a firm believer no part is too small because every person matters, every face matters. And so but exactly, Theo and Lucy are saying it, just don't overdo it. It's about fitting into the fabric of the piece, but that's true for the leads of a piece as well. You know, you want everyone to feel of the world.
The most fun thing, Ellen, do you remember when we were doing Ready Player One?
Yeah, what?
And we had to cast all those oologists.
Yeah.
And you go, what are these oologists? Anyway, they were like these small parts. Theo, you know James Dryden, he was one of them. It was like a few of these British guys, they were day players and they were all in the trailer and they looked so vivid and so great. And I just remember when the trailer for that, you know, Steven Spielberg movie came out and all these like guys they were one-line roles, if that. And they all made the trailer because they look great. And that's really fun. It's really fun. I love casting those small parts. As Ellen said, they are so important. And, you know, and you can see in Ted Lasso as well. Like they're very important. But
it is really exciting when one of your favourite sort of day players gets in the trailer.
I love it. It's my favourite.
It's so funny. I've never
my favourite.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to come back and ask you like your proudest casting moment, but let's talk about, I mean, you know, you've all got incredible careers and, you know, you're legends in the field. Let's talk about your journey into casting, like how you became casting directors. And Ellen, I'll start with you. Like, what was your path? I mean, because we don't, you know, growing up, it's like, I didn't know casting was, you know, a career. So tell us your story.
I'm from Chicago and I grew up going to the theater in Chicago and dance and, you know, all the arts. I'm lucky that my parents exposed me to a lot of the arts growing up. And I ended up going to film school at Columbia College in Chicago, studying film production, and went to a set and kind of looked around and thought, I don't really see where I fit here. I went, you know, kind of back to school, and I met a guy named Erwin Stoff who said, I think you'd be good in casting. I had no idea what it was. And I went to New York. Friends from Chicago were moving to New York, and I was very lucky to be introduced to Juliet Taylor. And I met her, and she said, I think I have a movie that is, I needed a new assistant in the office. And I had a trip planned to LA. I canceled the trip. I got a phone service on my phone. I waited for her to call. And I moved to New York like 3 weeks later from Chicago. And I worked for Juliet as her assistant and associate for 8.5 years. So it felt like a wonderful fit for me. Creatively very fulfilling. Right away. So
amazing. Theo, what's your journey?
Well, I wanted to be an actress originally, but I studied film instead, and then I became an agent I didn't really know what an agent was, but I started as an agent's assistant and then worked my way up, but realized it was not fun. And then I was really lucky, really, because I became quite friendly with Nina Gold, who is totally fabulous. And when I told her that I was thinking of leaving agenting, would she by any chance need some help? And then she said, yes, darling, come and work with me for a few weeks on this film. And then a few weeks turned into a few years. And then, the rest is history, really. But I did try and leave at one point and become a snowboarding instructor. and then came back. Yeah.
Lucy, what's your...
I didn't know anyone in film or this world when I was growing up, and I watched E.T. when I was about 10, and I was blown away, and I just thought all of those boys on their bikes were amazing, and I sort of fell in love with film. And I did, much like Eleanor, I found my way into production being a runner, running around Soho delivering scripts, and obviously this is like pre-internet stuff. And then I trained with Mary Selway, so I got a job for Mary Selway, who was a great casting director who cast Star Wars, With Nell and I, Gosford Park, so many other amazing things. And I worked with her until she died, and then I went on my own after she died. And I felt very, very lucky to have learnt what I learned from her, because I think it is, as you know, we've all experienced, it is something that you sort of, it's difficult. I suppose you need to kind of learn it, learn the trade like that.
Yeah.
Theo, do you have any tips for actors who want to, who might want to be a casting director? And since that's been your path, like, what would you say?
Oh God, I was never an actor, by the way. I'm not nearly talented enough. I was like, when I was a teenager, I thought I wanted to be an actor, but I quickly realized the error of my ways. So, sorry guys, keep going.
What tips would you give for actors who might want to pivot into casting, for all of you? I mean, it's not just actors, but people.
Pivot and don't turn back. I've just, I realize when I'm looking for new assistants, I get a lot of letters from actors pretending that they want to leave the acting industry, but they really don't. They still want to be an actor. I think much like being an actor, being a casting director, you really have to want to do it, and just stay committed and you'll get there.
Yeah. Anybody want to add to that?
We'll stick with Theo's answer.
So in terms of, when somebody is auditioning, and now, we've been doing Zoom, as we said, for the last 2.5 years, like, what makes somebody stand out to you in an audition? Like, is it the look, or if they make a bold choice, like, even if it is like not the best bold choice, but that stands out to you as like, oh, they were brave enough to do that. Go for it, Ellen.
I think this question clearly is coming up several times, because I think that many times actors think that if they do a specific thing, then X, Y, and Z will happen. And I just don't think it's as specific as that. Lucy, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, and I perhaps didn't answer your question very well earlier about what it's like working with Ken Branagh, but he really, really he really preps everything. So when an actor comes, and I've sort of learned that from him, like when an actor comes in and they've really prepped, they've really thought about it, they've got an idea, they've got a way of doing it, they're ready to take direction and make adjustments. I think that's the really key thing. Don't get locked into some idea, like be ready to take direction. But I think the best way to do that is to be prepped.
Yeah. So in terms of, what do you think is the most important thing an actor can do to keep their agents excited and investing as years pass, or like if they have quiet seasons, like from that point of view?
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? I do feel for people in that situation. Just keep talking to your agent, I think. Just, is there, keep an open conversation, like what do we think we need to do here? Be collaborative, don't be picky at them.
Yeah, and I guess and I also think if there's any way you can create your own work, if you have the gift of writing or putting something on with friends or whatever it is, it's not easier as one gets older. And I don't know, I just think if there's any way you can sort of generate your own work, there seems to be more and more possibility to do that, and then you're not so reliant on just your agent.
Let's talk about your success stories. Has there been somebody, let's talk about chemistry. You're watching a movie that you've helped cast, and like this couple has had insane chemistry. Have you got any of those stories that you want to share? Like, wow, I didn't expect them to connect as much, and then the internet explodes.
I've got an answer because I was watching Pam and Tommy, which I think is brilliantly cast, and Lily came in when I was doing Cinderella, and I was looking for a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl for Cinderella, like a lot of pressure, Disney, big, property for them. And Lily came in to audition for a stepsister, and she had brown hair, a brown fringe, and an orange jumper. And we read the stepsister scenes, and I went, take the Cinderella side, go downstairs and come back. And then we worked together, and I helped her, and then and she got the part, and that was really cool. And then Richard Madden was away on another job, and so I couldn't get them in the room together with the whole, to see if they had chemistry. So I just edited both auditions and like in a 2-shot, and that really helped, and it worked. Anyway, I'm really pleased with how well she's doing in really different things. It's really great.
And to that, Emma Stone and Emma Thompson together, their magic together.
They were having so much fun. Yeah. They had a lot of fun.
Ellen, did you want to add to a surprise casting chemistry story?
I don't know, Wolf of Wall Street, I feel like Leonardo got fixed up with 2 people, Margot Robbie and Jonah Hill. So they both kind of worked well with him in different ways. So
that was some great chemistry, all 3 of them.
Oh yeah, that movie's just fantastic.
Thea, what about on Ted Lasso?
Well, I sort of on Ted Lasso, I'm just so happy with all of them, really. So I wanted to mention actually another project, Master of None, working with Lanzari was just a dream, and the 3rd season was so different, proper dramatic work about a lesbian couple, and I'm so proud of Naomi Ackie. Like, how amazing is she? Opposite Lena Waithe, and we got them in a room together, and we taped quite a few women actually for that part. But then when we got Naomi and Lena in a room together, it just really worked. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with that pairing.
Yeah,
I'm very excited about I can't wait to see her Whitney.
Oh, I know. How exciting.
Yeah. Watch this space. We haven't even seen a still from that yet, but I'm sure it'll come soon. A lot of people have been asking about associate casting directors. So how do you find your associate casting directors and collaborators? What's the process for hiring your creative team?
It's hard. Yeah.
Emily, who worked with me on Belfast and is co-casting director on Belfast, I met her when she was 15 at a school. I was roped in, like a friend worked at a school, and they said, would I come and do like a careers evening? And I met her, and she came to do work experience with me, and she was really good. She really sorted out my office, and so then she came back the following holiday and the following holiday and the following holiday. And now she works, we work together alongside. So yeah, it's a long time ago. She's worked.
Emily, when I was at Nina's, when Lucy was having a break, she came to work with us, and I swear to God, I said to Nina, Emily is the best assistant I've ever met in my whole life. She was amazing.
She's very pleased to be nominated and for this, and it's really cool.
She's totally great. Yeah.
Ellen, what's your process for
You know,
hiring your collaborative team?
I mean, I think the thing that's really, you know, I feel like we are a collegial community overall. And I have such a fondness for casting directors. You know, I think I was very lucky working for Juliet Taylor and Laura Rosenthal, Patricia DeSerto, you know, and the people that Juliet worked with over the years before us. And then, you know, getting to meet Theo when she was with Nina, and Lucy kind of through Leslie Feldman or different people. And I think that, I mean, you do start as an assistant. So the associate, you know, there are steps here that that happen. And, you know, where do we find people? I feel like we really do reach out to our community and say, you know, and I think that what we do is slightly elusive in a lot of ways. I think it's elusive even to actors and some, you know, and I think that we all know that we understand each other because we are doing this. And I think there's really a lot of warmth, as I say, and understanding within the casting community for each other.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like Nina will say to me, I need someone, do you know anyone? Or I'll say the same. Like we all kind of try and help each other out with that stuff. But yeah, as you say, Ellen, like you kind of start as an assistant really, don't you? Unless you've found another way in.
Generally, yeah.
Give us an insight into like what a typical day is like for you. Like, are you watching demo reels? Like, are you, you know, auditioning? Like, take us through like an average day in the life of a casting director. Lucy, start.
No, I'm going to let Ellen and Theo will sound much more professional. I'm like,
all right, Ellen, you take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends where we are on a project. And so, you know, you start at the beginning. And the beginning is the beginning. The beginning is reading a script and making a list of who the characters are. And, you know, you do start with generally the leads, or there's somebody and you've met with the director. You start talking to agents right away. And so we're on the phone, and as Lucy and Theo, certainly you guys have such a phenomenal, you know, theater community there. I think obviously everybody is watching a lot of TV now. People are watching all these series, and, you know, so again, you're starting at the beginning. So the beginning is the beginning. What are the roles? Who's the director? What's the world that they are looking to create?
And I'm just a sort of, I think you just keep coming back to the script. Every time I'm stuck with the part, you just keep coming back to the script. And like, because what is it that you're missing that perhaps the director hasn't been able to articulate, or maybe they have been able to articulate, but it's just always kind of trying to come back and sort of fulfill what that role is, which starts with the script and then the director's vision. Yeah.
Theo, did you want to add to that?
Well, I like an actual day in the office does depend on what stage you're at with each project. And I do like those days when you sort of have a lull and you can just sit and watch demo reels or go to a grad show. I like those days, but some days you can't do that and you're just doing the do.
Yeah. Well, to Ellen's point and to your point, like, you know, how, you know, like you're watching TV and, you know, there's a wealth of streaming things out there now. You know, how important are headshots still and like full demo reels when you have the internet at your disposal and you can just Google somebody? Like, talk about how technology has changed and played a part in the casting process. Ellen, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, there used to be bags of submissions and photos that would come to the office. I mean, you know, I think we were all, I definitely was pre computer.
And I was the one stapling them, Ellen. Stapling them and sending them in the post.
But I do think that you do need headshots because on Spotlight, I mean, and a reel is helpful. Even someone saying hello, there's this little box on Breakdown where you just have this little slate where they say hello. Even that's actually helpful.
We don't have that sort of thing, do we, Lucy?
I want a little box for people telling me to saying hello.
Yeah.
They say hello. They're not saying hello to you, but they're saying hello. Like it's part of the break. I'm going to show it to you guys. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
No, I think headshots are really important, and I think headshots have got to look like you. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Like they just got to look like you as much as possible.
And you don't need a million of them. You just need one. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you ever pick actors from IMDb? So like you said, Ellen, you're watching TV, somebody stands out, you Google them or IMDb them, like, what's that? If somebody stands out to you, like, have you ever cast from IMDb?
I definitely have. And even if they're not on IMDb, I will email the casting director, say, oh, who was the one at the bus stop, and I'll remember them, and I will definitely. Yeah.
I love that you cast Theo. Is it Jeremy Swift's wife? Is it Mary Roscoe?
Yeah.
I loved when I was watching
his wife.
Yeah, his actual wife. I know, and I knew I'd cast them together years ago, and I saw them in Ted Lasso, and I was like, oh, I'd forgotten that their husband and they had such a great. It was so clever of you to cast them together because they have such a sort of warm chemistry, obviously.
Well, it was hilarious because the writers said to me, oh, by the way, we're giving Higgins a wife, so you're going to have to cast her. I was like, well, we're just going to cast his own actual wife, obviously. And they were like, can she act? I was like, yes, she's brilliant.
Right. Yeah. All the time. I mean, I'm constantly watching the better things that my colleagues like Ellen and Theo have cast and thinking, oh, great idea, I'll have that.
No, I think we all do that. It's like, ooh, really? Exactly. Let me look down this cast. Okay.
It's also really fun, isn't it, Ellen? It's also, I was just thinking, it's really fun when, like, do you remember Letitia Wright did like a day player in that film, and I'm not even sure that her line of dialogue made it.
It's amazing.
Wow. And I think
amazing job.
And then Black Panther was next year. That's really fun. Watching, there's no such thing as a small part, just leads to another one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That her story is amazing. I mean, so in terms of opportunities to audition, if somebody has won an award for a short film, like how much does an independent short or like a short film like catch your attention? Like, or is that something like if you see that on a resume that they've won?
Yeah. I've actually been asked this week to be on the jury of a short film festival, and so I had to watch about 12 short films and choose the best actor of the film, and it was fascinating. And half of them I didn't know, because that's the thing about short films, isn't it? It's like, not very well established actors learning their trade or whatever. And it was brilliant. And I've got them all on the list now. I'm going to be getting them in. So yeah, absolutely. It's, and especially if they won an award, it's really thrilling and very useful.
Yeah. So casting is obviously, we know, everybody tuning in today knows the importance of casting to any movie, to any TV show. And I know that it is a branch within the Academy. There is, and I'm championing it, there needs to be an Academy Award for Best Casting. I mean, what are your thoughts on, talk about the importance, let's just put it out there, of casting to a movie and let people appreciate what you do. Okay, go ahead, Lucy.
Well, I feel that casting is no less important than any other head of department who is nominated for an Academy Award on a film. I think our contribution is as important as anyone else's in a purely collaborative art form.
I agree.
Yeah.
half of the crafts do not have a job to do unless we've done our job. I mean, we are it's the director, it's the writer, and then us. It's so very important to everything. Doesn't really make sense. And as you said, Lucy, it was just so beautiful that Cindy honored and mentioned Lynn Stallmaster as an uncredited casting director of the original film of West Side Story. And also I'm very appreciative of BAFTA for acknowledging casting, because the Oscars can't quite seem to make it. But so I'm really appreciative of the BAFTAs for doing that.
And I was there on Sunday, and Ariana's standing up and saying, Cindy Tolan, Cindy Tolan, Cindy Tolan, Cindy Tolan. If it wasn't for you, I'd have never got through the door. It just needs the Academy to be listening to that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there is a career retro with Lynn Stallmaster in the video gallery. So if everybody's tuning in and you want to watch it, it is right out there. I mean, you've all, as we've said, you've got incredible careers in casting. Is there something you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out your career?
Sometimes I wish I was still answering the phone. And being in the waiting room and welcoming the actors.
Do you take unsolicited, like, I mean, now with social media, right? Like people can reach out to you, but yeah, do you take unsolicited demo reels or?
Not really, no.
Not really.
Okay. So, okay, that's fine. What advice would you give then to, any last words to the audience out there, whether they want to get into casting or whether they want to send in an audition tape or reel? Final thoughts.
I don't know. I found to get into casting, it was really useful for me to have worked in the industry a bit. So like Lucy, actually, I was a runner, I was a production assistant, and then I became an agent's assistant, and I became an agent. So I've got like a really sort of broad view and understanding of the industry. And I think that's really, really important, actually, in casting, just to sort of know what goes on when you're filming and what is required across the board.
Mary Selby used to say, only be an actor if you absolutely can't not be, because it's really hard. And I feel the same about casting, because it's really hard. We perhaps, it's so nice to see Ellen and Theo, perhaps I'm making it sound easier than it is, but often one's under a lot of pressure, particularly on the bigger, well, actually that's not true. I feel under pressure on everything. And it's hard, it's hard to make good creative choices when you're under various pressures. And so, yeah, only do it if you feel very passionate about it, I would say.
Exactly. That's why I'd like to just be answering the phone sometimes.
Well, we're going to let you get back to answering the phone, Ellen. And thank you all so much today on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Thank you for sharing your experience, your process, and your craft with your fellow performers. And congratulations on everything. Thank you for this incredible conversation. And to everybody for sending in your questions and participating in this conversation today. So thank you all.
And let's all be thinking positive and peaceful thoughts right now for the world.
Yes.
And that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Ellen and Theo.
Thank you so much.
Bye. So nice to see you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.